Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Darrell Owens, and this is Green and Gold over Everythang. And this is episode 7. It's been a fun season so far. Well, it's been a fun overall NFL season. Never know what you're going to get from week to week. The Packers had a week off last week, so now we're ready for some more Packers football as they ramp it back up this week. They head to Denver to take on a 1-5 Broncos team, and a chance for the Packers to bounce back this week. We've got to talk about a new signing, a new running back in the running back room, the injuries right now affecting the team, and then Lamonte Thomas of the LegacyMaker Sports Network and Broncos Insider will come in to tell us how the Broncos can beat the Packers. And of course, I'm gonna give you what the Packers need to do to beat the Broncos. That's right. Green and Gold over everything starts right now. Gentlemen, we are here for episode 7 of Green and Gold over Everything. And like I said, it's an honor to be with you today. Got a little bit to get into. Not going to go too deep today. Today's not going to be a big show. Rolling solo today. Hopefully have Randall Burns and Deshaun Rucker back next week, if not one of the two, to come and join me to talk about Packers football and at least talk about how that Packers-Broncos game went. But we got a lot to get into because there's just a couple of questions that I kind of intrigued about as we head into week 7. Packers come into this 2-3 right now, and to me, it feels like they're struggling, at least definitely offensively. I think the defense has played pretty decent for the most part over the last couple of games, or at least have had the Packers in a good position where they could win the game, and it just hasn't went that way. And we've had a chance to see how this is all unfolded over the last couple of weeks. Starting from the Falcons game that in a lot of people's eyes, including myself, should have been a win. You beat the Saints on a comeback victory. And then you go and you struggle against teams like, the Raiders. And I don't know. It's been weird. You lose to the Lions, which the Lions game to me is the only game the Packers truly looked like they were outclassed. Now, even after the Rudy Ford interception at the beginning that gave a little ringling of hope, the Lions absolutely dominated the Packers in that contest. And so for me, it just never felt like Green Bay was in that one. But the other games, all of the other games, Packers either were in it, and I feel like they could have won, especially the Falcons game where they were up by 12 heading into that fourth quarter. And then, of course, the Raiders game where they had the ball driving at the end of the game. And, some things that I didn't like that I saw, for myself going into that quarter, or at least into that last drive from Jordan Love. And so I guess question at hand, should we be worried about Jordan Love? We seen Jordan kind of do some good things here over the last, or at least in the first couple of games. And then to me, it feels like we've seen him kind of digress a little, or, degress or progress, or the fancy terminology. It's a little bit of a setback, we're going to say. And you can kind of see where it feels like maybe, from that Bears game. I would say, all right, I want to make sure I say this right. So from the Bears game up until into that fourth quarter moment against the Falcons, where that's the first time I felt like from that point on, it's been a little bit of a struggle for Jordan. Now, he didn't throw his first pick, I believe, until that Saints game. But before then, he had 6 touchdowns. He was rolling. He had threw 6 touchdowns, 0 picks. Now, since then, it hasn't been pretty. So 2 touchdowns, 6 picks. And so it's just like, especially in that Raiders game, it seemed like he was laboring a little bit. Looked like he was, maybe not as comfortable and confident as he was in that first game. Now, in that first game, you have an Aaron Jones. In that first game, you have a healthy, at least at the time, seemed like healthy David Bakhtiari, a healthy Jenkins. And, we saw, we said to ourselves, look at that Packer offense. They're looking really clean to get things started. At least that's how I know how I felt. And then from that point on, no Bakhtiari in the second week. And he's been out pretty much since, he played the first game and he's been out pretty much since then. He's out for the season. Aaron Jones, we've seen one other time since week 1. And we've seen him in week 1. And, he had the hamstring injury there. They held him off against Atlanta. He came back against Detroit. To me, it wasn't too hot of a look. He came back against Detroit and they didn't use him. And so they didn't play him against the Raiders. Excuse me. And hopefully they have gotten to the point now or he's getting to the point where we get him, get Aaron back. But with all that being said, not trying to make any excuses for Jordan Love. And one of my biggest, takeaways from what I've seen is it seems like that confidence level that he had in that first game and a half is kind of dwindled. And for the Packer fans out there that are ready to say, all right, that's it, I'm done with Jordan Love. You have to remember one thing. This, to me, feels essentially like a rookie season for him. He sits behind Aaron for 4 years. He does get a little play. That Kansas City game, of course, the Philadelphia game last year, the Kansas City game from 2 years ago. And this is the first time we're getting a chance to see a full slate of Jordan Love on multiple games, trying to get his groove, trying to get things going. And I think people just got to kind of sit back a little bit and give him time to kind of grow and kind of nurture. And so for those who are watching visually, I want you to see what I says, what I got under my headline here, where it says Jordan Love equals rookie year. And I mean that. This is like the rookie year for Jordan Love. You've got to give this young man time to grow and kind of go through his bumps and bruises throughout this season. So had a bye week, and now they're going to have a chance to kind of get themselves back in the groove here. Can they get themselves back in the groove here? Can they, I guess you can say, beat up or have a bounce back game against a team that is struggling tremendously in the Denver Broncos? So for those out there that say, hey, man, Jordan Love is not that guy, give him time. The completion percentages went down. You got a guy who does not have veteran receivers. You got a guy who doesn't have a veteran tight end. Your most I won't say veteranship because that's not the word, but your most experienced part of this offense is your offensive line, who was nicked up, and your running back room, which is also nicked up. That's why we'll talk about the signing in a little bit. But that's where he's kind of, I think, not having all those pieces and those things you got to kind of overcome, but he's still going. Give Jordan Love time, y'all. I think he's going to be fine. But my biggest thing for me throughout this season was to see him to continue to make progress or show flashes or continue to show flashes that, hey, he's in the right path. He's in the right place to become the next great Packer quarterback. And we've seen hints of it. And the question is, he's got to be smart on some decision making. The way that Raiders game ended gave me just a nasty taste in my mouth. The 3 interceptions, of course, one was tipped, but the first and the second one really bothered me. I just, watching it, my poor son said, went to my wife and said, Daddy's in the room. He's letting loose. Daddy was saying some things he probably shouldn't have said. But, you're still going to be a little frustrated here and there. But I think as Packer fans, we have to kind of just give him some time. I know in this age of self gratification, just you got to have it right then and there. Let's just wait. Let's wait and see what Jordan Love could do. So I'm going to say, Packer fans, don't be worried just yet. Give Jordan Love, give J-Lo some time. I think that's going to be critical. Now, speaking about the veterans, that he does not have on the offensive side of the ball, probably one of my biggest complaints is that he doesn't have the veterans that I feel like that he needs in order for him to like truly um, truly take that next step, or at least, if not, helped out those guys in that room. So they're missing out on having somebody on that receiving core that could help the young guys come along. Maybe not be the 1, 2, or 3 receiver, but it's okay for that veteran to be the 4 receiver, but truly show the young guns, some things and be that mentor. They need that. They also need that in the tight end room, which they do not have. And so I think that's something that they're definitely going to have to look into. Now, for me, what moves I would like to see this Packers team make before the deadline. And for me, there's a receiver out there, and he's not the biggest receiver, but he's got experience of, making big plays. And if he is involved in the offense, I feel like he could be a guy that could really help this team. He's been in the league 6 years, or this is his 6th year, and I think he would be a really good addition. He's not the tallest, but he could be a very reliable receiver with these young guns. And that person that I think that the Packers should go for, and to be honest with you, should have been involved in the Devontae Adams trade. Still to this day, I don't understand why he wasn't, but touche, or by all means, is Hunter Renfrow. Hunter Renfrow to me is a very reliable receiver that's not getting the reps per se, or not getting the targets out there in Vegas that he needs. I probably said Oakland a couple of times on the show, so my apologies, but whatever. The Vegas they're just not giving him what he needs. Believe the trade deadline is next week, so there's still a chance. And if you're the Packers, you got to make a move here. Bring in a veteran receiver. You don't want to take away from the young guns, but I think you also need to be able to have that person there to can help bring those guys along. I just think it's so critical. Now, with Renfrow, hasn't had like a ton of great games this year because he's just not getting the ball. 9 targets for the young man, and I feel like he can get more than that in Green Bay. They're passing the ball a lot more in Green Bay than I expected them to pass the ball. I thought this was definitely going to be a run-heavy offense, and it's been quite the opposite. We've seen games where Jordan Love has thrown the ball 44 times. So Matt LaFleur has really opened that thing up. But and I just want to look at these stats real quick. In 2021, his best season, 103 catches, 1,000 yards, at 1,000 yards receiving, and 9 touchdowns. And that was in a year where Derek Carr was cooking. And, now that they have Devontae out there, and they have Jacoby Myers, who's having himself a really good season. So if you got Jacoby Myers in your fantasy, or somebody, you might want to grab him. He's had a really good season out there in Vegas. He's picked up some, what's the word I want to use? He's picked up some steam. We'll go with that. So he's a guy that I think, has really grown. And with those two guys being on that team, we've seen a lot less from Renfrow. They barely get him the ball. I think he had 1 catch in the Packers game, just the one. So with only 6 receptions this year and 59 yards, he's a guy that if he goes to any team, I think that he can come out and be productive right away. I would not be surprised if maybe like the Saints, I know they kind of loaded receiver, but maybe they reconnect him with Derek Carr. But if he goes to a team that can come in there and he can, I think he will be a really big piece for that team. And that's why I think he will be really good in Green Bay. They just need a guy who can come in, maybe not the biggest guy, but a veteran receiver that can help bring those young guns around. And him being a kind of a, hot trade commodity right now, why not? Should have been a Packer in the first place, in my opinion. I know people are going to hate that, but that's just where I saw it. I've always thought he was one of the most sure hand receivers in the league. He proved it in 2021 that he could be. and a little bit of a setback last year when Devontae came in, and it just hasn't been the same. He's not. I thought that he would thrive under McDaniels, and he hasn't. And McDaniels and them don't give him the ball at all, and it's depressing. But I've always been a big Hunter Renfrow guy, and I would like to see him come to Green Bay. I think that would be a really, really nice move. And at some point, maybe get a veteran tight end. I know this is maybe a little bit wild, but I don't think the Bears will let him go. But there's a way that they can bring Mercedes Lewis back just to come and be a mentor in that locker room and be a leader in that locker room. I think that would just be great. I think it would absolutely be great. Do I think it's going to happen? No, I'm not dumb. I just don't see that happening, unfortunately. But that's the move that I would like to see happen and see if the Packers can make it happen. But they did make some type of move. So on Tuesday, they did decide to go and sign Mr. James Robinson. Now, James Robinson, former Jacksonville Jaguars, former New York Jet, former Giant. He's been on a lot of teams the last couple of years, but he was, to me, is a really good signing for Green Bay because you get a guy who has run for 1,000 yards in the season, was close another season, got a little nicked up, and then Jacksonville decided to draft Travis Etienne, and all of a sudden my man's out of a job, which it kind of blew my mind. You know, like when they did it, I was like, man, you got James Robinson, he's playing well, and since that moment, he's had struggles in his career. All of a sudden, he hasn't been the same guy. So I'm hoping that him coming into the Packers running back room will kind of give them a burst. And maybe, you know, if he can get back a little bit to that old form and give the Packers some type of, security blanket while Jones is out. But this signing also kind of makes me worry, which means maybe Aaron Jones is not as close that we would like for him to be to get back into or be back on the field. So I love the James Robinson signing. I've always been a big James Robinson guy. I just hope that he can, get back to where he was, get back to that glory time, I guess you could say, for him. So good luck to James Robinson. Glad that he is on the green and gold. Next thing, our injury report. Now, the injury report is a little bit, I don't want to say long, but it's not what I would like to see. Well, we've got Aaron Jones, obviously, out with the hamstring issue. I'm not 100% sure when he'll be back. It's definitely touch and go each week. But my thing is, if you're bringing in James Robinson, there's a reason why. And maybe they're going to hold him out a little bit longer. They haven't decided to put him on no IR or anything like that, which we're keeping him out 4 games. But don't be surprised. Maybe like next week that happens. They want to make sure that he's 100% healthy. But that Packers offense is sorely missing Aaron Jones. We finally got to see A.J. Dillon do a little something the week before last in that Raiders game on that Monday night. But besides that, he has not been what I thought he was going to be this season. I thought this was going to be a breakout year for A.J. Dillon, and it just hasn't been the case. Devondre Campbell is still out, still waiting to see if he's going to make his return. He's questionable. Quay Walker, who got injured in that Raiders game, is also questionable, but there's a chance that he'll be back now that he had a week of rest. Walker's been outstanding. He was, before the injury, he's top 5 in the league in tackles. He's all over the field. He's making a case for a Pro Bowl type season. So I love what I've seen from Walker. Got to get him back on the field. That's going to be critical. And then another injury that I just think that I can't wait to see what he looks like when he gets back on the field is Eric Stokes. Finally back in practice the last couple of weeks. Hopefully that foot is, in a really good spot where we can finally see Eric Stokes on the field and maybe see that defense's full potential. So without Campbell, without Stokes, without Walker, I think we're really missing out on what we can see from this Packers defense. But that don't mean nothing if that offense can't figure that thing out. They've got to figure that thing out. All right, so with all that being said, y'all, it is time to head on over. I got a special guest coming on, my man Lamonte Thomas of the LegacyMaker Sports Network, Broncos Insider. He's going to come over here and tell me how the Broncos can beat the Green Bay Packers. And I'm going to give you the scoop on how the Packers how the Packers could beat the Broncos or how they should beat the Broncos, whatever way you want to put it. But we're going to give our 3 keys for the game. Let's go ahead and get on to it. It is our game preview, Packers versus Broncos. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I know what you're waiting for. I know what you're excited for. It is the Week 7 preview of Packers football, green and gold over everything. I got a special guest coming in with me on this one. That's why I'm super excited. But we got the Broncos and the Packers. Packers traveling to Denver. Got a chance to be out in Denver this year. For those who are out there that have to go, I hope you can breathe correctly because I've been struggling since I got back from Denver. I do not know what they did to me, but that's what happens ever since I've been out there. But it is an honor today to have with me the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Lamont Thomas, coming in to give you that Broncos inside here on the LegacyMaker Network. Lamont, how you doing today, brother? How's everything going?
Doing great, man. I'm excited. I'm glad that you have me on here, man.
Yeah,
It's
man. I
real
look. I
good.
tried. I tried to make it look clean. Give you, got to have a little Bronco colors and all this other mess that we got going on here. Now, but Lamont, we're going to give Lamont a chance to tell us what the Broncos need to do to beat the Packers. I know that's not what you want to hear, but what the Broncos need to do to beat the Packers. Lamont, what do the Broncos need to do to get win number 2 on the season?
Yeah, well, first, my first key for the Broncos is going to be to score touchdowns in the red zone, right? So the Broncos are 57.8% in scoring touchdowns in the red zone. That's 11th in the league, Darrell. So the one bright spot in this terrible season that they're having right now is that they have been okay when entering the red zone when it comes to scoring touchdowns. So if they can continue that'll be the first key to victory. Second's going to be to win the turnover battle. All right, so the Packers have an average of negative zero point 0.2 in the turnover margin. So that means that they're almost even, but they're just slightly on the negative side per game. That's 20th in the league. But the Broncos are 26th. Theirs is negative zero point 0.8 turnovers per game in the turnover margin, meaning that they're almost down a turnover to the opposition, per game. So that's something that they're going to want to be on top of and to give them a chance to win in this game. And then third is going to be to win the first half. Now, their second halves have been terrible, but my logic behind this is if you look at all the upsets that are happening, the Jets overcame the Eagles, you got the Browns overcame the 49ers. Keeping it close, and even the ones that we see both in pro and college football, keeping it close is usually how they do it, right? That's usually how you topple an opponent that's not that you're not supposed to beat, or that usually on paper they could be better than you. And I think that if they can keep it close in the first half, that'll be a key for them. That they'll give them a chance to win it in the end.
Yeah, so I agree with all of your keys here, but the biggest one has got to be the last one for me because if I got a chance to see it personally.
Mm-hmm.
The Broncos jumped on the Commanders earlier in that week 2 matchup. It was week 2. The season going too fast. In the week 2 matchup, and the Broncos got out to like was a 21. I want to say it was 21-3 lead, and they were cruising. And then, Sam Howell and the boys just slowly but surely got back into it. Now, the Broncos did make a little small push late, but I agree with you. When you are jumping out to these leads and you can't finish it off, here's the thing. The Packers kind of have the same problem. We've seen it a couple times this year. They started off really good against the they started off bad against the Saints and then
Yeah, they
came
were down
back.
17-0.
17-0 against the Saints, then came back. Then they were winning against the Falcons 24-12, and then gave up 13 points for the Falcons to end up winning that game. In the Raiders game, they were in the mix and just couldn't put it together. So sloppy
Yeah.
play has been a key here.
Yeah, and the Raiders were up 17. No, they were up 13-10 at half. And then you guys, I think they outscored you guys 7-3 at the end. But see, I think that's what it is when you see these low scoring games. I mean, it's one thing for, like you said, the Washington game where the Broncos jump out 21-3. It's kind of an anomaly because offensively they haven't been that good on the season. But
Right.
when it's a low scoring game and you're fighting, it's so much harder to play from behind, down multiple scores. But when the game is tight like that, it's almost like you have that chance, right? So you're not demoralizing or killing the team spirit by having to come back by multiple scores. And I think that having being up after the first half is going to give a struggling team, it's going to give them a boost going into the second half. Now, like you said, you still got to play the whole game.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
They're notorious for blowing it at the end, but I feel like you're gonna have to fix that second half sooner or later. But at least do what you know you can do, and that's start the game off well.
Well, we
And I
got two
think
teams. Oh, go ahead, Lamar. It's my
I
fault.
was just gonna say winning the turnover margin. I think is gonna be the other part of that.
And see, and that's the thing. Like we got two teams coming in here that's struggling to play complete games, and I
Hmm.
think that's going to be an interesting part. Do we get another? Do we get more of that, or do we get a team that comes out and shows, hey, here's a complete game. This is what we could look like if we play a complete game. And I got a feeling that that's how this one is going to go. Somebody's actually going to come out and play a complete game, but we'll see. Here are the Packers' keys to victory in this bad boy. First of all, number one, Jordan Love decision making must improve. What we saw in that Raiders game, 3 interceptions, and they were hard interceptions to watch if you're a Packers fan or as I like to say, a Packer enthusiast. So if you sit there and you get a chance to watch it, you see it, and those picks were just bad picks. The first one he threw, it looked like he was trying to throw, but it was like 4 Raiders in the mix. They were right there. Then the other one gets tipped, and then the one at the very end of the game, underthrown. He had Watson in a good position. He waited a little too late. It gets underthrown. Watson had to try to do something with it, and then the interception. But it seems like Jordan Love's decision making has a little digressed a little bit since week one, and they look so good against the Bears, and equally good at the beginning of the Falcons game. You say, okay, look at this. This is what you want to see, and then from that point on in the season, they have struggled. So since the fourth quarter of the Falcons game, it has been a rough go for the Packers offense. Now, number two, the defense must play similar or better than they did in Week 5 against the Raiders. And what I mean by that is, if you go back and watch this game, the Packers defense played really well.
Hmm.
Offense did not step up and do the things that needed to be done to help that defense. And Jair Alexander he kind of called the offense out after the game, and it's like, we've done our part, and he's 100% right. But when you have one of the youngest teams in the NFL and definitely the youngest offense in the NFL, these are the type of things you're going to see. So the defense definitely is going to have to play that way once again, or if not better, this week. And number three, keep. I know this sucks. I apologize, Lamar, but it's the truth. You gotta keep Russell Wilson playing at the level he's playing at right now.
Hmm.
You don't need Russ to have a throwback game and play like he's played in the past against the Packers, because we've seen Russ go out there and just demolish Green Bay. We've seen him break Green Bay's heart twice as a Seahawk, and could he do it again? Oh, most definitely. We saw the Hail Mary earlier, this year against Washington. So it's like, you don't want him to have a throwback game. Can he have a throwback game? Yes. Do you want him to have a throwback game? No. So I think that's the biggest three keys for me, for the Packers going into this game against the Broncos. Don't let Russell Wilson have a throwback game. Keep the turmoil going, I guess you can say. And I think that's how you win this game if you're Green Bay.
Yeah, I agree with all three of your keys. I mean, I think the biggest one is going to be to have the defense play similar than the Raiders game. That defense, like you said, was, I mean, they looked good. They looked good. They made it hard for the Raiders, and I think that's how I see the game going. I see it being a battle of two offenses trying to find their niche, trying to find their rhythm and get it together. And honestly, I see the Packers probably pulling it out this time, just because you know when you put the Broncos offense against the ropes, they don't necessarily respond like the Raiders did. So I think that again, the defense, whoever makes that best defensive play towards the end of the game might win the game.
Yeah, and this feels like I'll be honest with you, that 17-13 we saw last week. These two teams, they're the kings right now. They're like top 5 teams that do, like, hey, what's final score of the game? Oh, the game final score was 15-12. Like, what? Like, it's like weird scores. Like, what was the score of the game? Man, it was 11-8. Like, it's like, that's the vibe that you get out of this game, and but it's still two teams looking to make moves. Obviously, I know coming from your end, you see the Broncos, and you say to yourself, like, all right, man, with Caleb time, like, people are already looking ahead. We've already heard reports that Russell won't be back next year. And before we get off of here, just what are your thoughts of this Broncos team right now, as their status? What do you hope for the future as they get into as the season goes along and as we eventually head to the offseason?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I quite believe in Sean Payton's statement saying that he knows where the roster is, that they pick up the phone when guys call, but it's not a fire sale when it comes to the team. Well, that could be true. Um, I definitely think that moving on from Russ makes sense, just because of everything from the money to the age of him to everything. Um, but more importantly, I'm more disappointed in the defense in this team. Um, besides your two biggest players and Chubb and Von Miller being gone, Vic Fangio had some success with this defense, and now he's in Miami, and it just seems that Vance Joseph just can't get it done. Um, and when they interviewed for the position, they also interviewed Rex Ryan. I wanted Rex Ryan because I thought he fit the personality of a Sean Payton. Right, they're both in your face, punch you in the mouth type of guys.
Hmm.
And I felt like it was more of a fit personnel wise, but they decided to go with Vance Joseph. And I wasn't happy. Rex even said he wasn't happy with it. And it just, I don't know. It just seems like it's not working.
Yeah, it's a really a tough go. I think I having to get a chance to see it, I felt to myself like, man, they really had a chance to, like, there's a couple games they could have won. They could
Mm-hmm.
easily be like, what, 3-3, maybe even
They could have won the
4-2.
Washington game. They could have won the Raiders game.
Yeah, they could easily be 3-3.
Yeah,
And so it's one of those teams that just a couple bad plays that didn't go their way, or a couple bad quarters and that just didn't go their way, and that's where they are. I kind of feel the same way about Green Bay right now. Green Bay, in my eyes, should be probably 4-1. Only
yeah.
game they truly lost was that Lions game. They were in
That's
the
it.
mix in every single game that they've
That's
been
it.
in.
And same with the
So
Broncos. I mean, the Jets game too.
yeah, yeah,
Hall picks up the fumble and scores. If the Broncos go down and score, they win the game. So I mean, you got three games that they could have won. So instead of 1-5, they could easily be what 4-2.
yeah, and that's the thing, and that's what it could be, and that's the NFL for you. You never really know what you can get. Then we see the Jets, this past weekend they beat the Eagles, first
Game.
time in team history. Which
That's
that's the
insane.
one. That's the stat that kind of got me. I'm like, how did that happen?
But I said, is that right? Like
it,
they
it,
never beat them
it
before?
it just didn't feel good. It just didn't feel good. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I want to thank the man, the myth, the legend himself. A big part of the Legacy Maker Sports Network, my guy, Mr. Lamonte Thomas, for coming on and talking a little Broncos. Now, Lamont, you don't know this yet. Probably gonna bring you back to talk about the Chargers. I know how much you.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna probably bring Lamont back to talk about that.
I got a funny story about the Chargers this year too. That I think I told you guys. So
Right. Yeah. So
yeah,
when you see with Chargers week, we'll probably have Lamont back on
or
to kind of break down that game. I think the Packers will be heading to LA for that one, so they'll be heading to SoFi. Once again, everybody, thank you all for tuning in. It was great to have you on. Great show overall. Thank everybody for tuning in for episode 7 of Green and Gold over Everythang here on the Legacy Maker Sports Network. We'll have episode 8 coming next week. Of course, we'll have a Broncos recap, and then we'll get ready for the Vikings. As they come in, and I haven't gotten the special guest for that just yet, but I have someone in mind to come in and talk Vikings, and that's going to probably be one that burns my ears just
rivalry
just
week.
just a little bit. But everybody, once again, thank you all for tuning in. This has been Green and Gold over Everything.